All right, Patrick Centellini. It's actually quite special for me because I've looked in the calendar and we're gonna air this interview on January 15th, and that's my wife's birthday.
Wow. Important day.
Yes, and I know it's extremely exciting with schemes and settlement, but she's more interested in ice cream and schemes and settlement. So I really think we should start there, because one of the cool things about you, Patrick, is that you're not just a payment expert. You are actually I shouldn't even say ice cream. I should say gelato.
Gelato, yes.
Gelato. And then you have to explain what's the difference between ice cream and gelato. Yes, give us the whole picture of why we never can go back to ice cream after listening to this interview.
Well, I mean, there are a couple of things. I think one thing when we think about traditional ice cream is that it's usually, I mean, the one that we buy in the stores, which is basically it's not freshly. Maybe it's made 6 months before. It's usually infused a lot of air actually in it, so you have less volume. So gelato is more compact, and gelato also has less fat than you have in usually more tasty. So like when you make a fruit gelato with, it's 50%, like 50% strawberries when you make a strawberry gelato, and it's not what you find maybe in traditional ice cream. Yeah. And I think that another part of it is, of course, that when you run a gelato business, a gelateria, I mean, the best gelato you get in the places where it is done fresh every day from scratch. And that is what I'm doing now. What was my dream, so to say. But to run an ice cream shop, a gelato shop, where you do it in the morning and then you sell the ice cream every day. I mean, you make new every day, and so that is what we're doing. And I think that's
there's not only a difference between ice cream and gelato, there is difference between gelato and gelato as well. Because I've learned, yes. There is a Russian guy here in my hometown in Helsingborg, and he's selling gelato in what's called the North Harbor, Norra Hamnen. And I meet him sometimes when I go to ocean swimming and we sit in the sauna, and he explained everything to me that no, you shouldn't make it from powder. You should make it fresh, Yeah. So because there are a lot of people saying they're selling gelato, but they're making it from powder, which is cheating a little bit in his words.
Yeah, that's completely true. And even in Italy, that is true. They talk about different categories. When we talk about gelato artigianale, artisan gelato, then you mean that you don't use like half fabricates and that you don't use these ready-made powders or liquids, because basically you can, I mean, the easiest way today, you even find gelato flavors that are on a tetra already mixed. So you can have like a hazelnut flavor or pistachio flavor, and just pour it in the ice cream machine, press the button, and 10 minutes later it's done. So anyone can do that. But so you have those as well, and but when I talk about gelato artigianale, and which, I mean, of course there's a big sector for that as well, you do it from scratch, and you really also, there's a lot of, let's say today, consciousness about what you actually put in. You want to take out as many add-ons as possible, and so you don't have like for instance, I don't use emulsifiers. And even these artisanal gelatos, many use emulsifiers, but I don't, and I've learned that can be bad for you, and so it's this trend also now to make it really a little bit go back to where you started, where you have fewer ingredients and less, let's say, chemical add-ons, just a natural part. So that's why we call our gelato naturale, which is, it's just all natural.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I know I told you when you sort of joined Crunchfish as a payment expert that the real reason we are sort of hiring you is that my wife wants to learn how to make real gelato naturale.
Yeah. I know that. I have it on my to-do list. Let's see what happens after.
Yeah. No, I'll give I'll give her a course from Patrick Centellini as her birthday present today, which is great. No, it's kind of interesting, and I guess we have to let's look at your business there a little bit, because you have a gelateria in Stockholm. I always, is it Axel Lundqvist Park or something at Söder?
Almost. Axel Landqvist Park. Yeah, but it's just in the hub where it's called Sofo, south of Folkungagatan. It's a place where we have a lot of restaurants and small shops, and so it's quite a lot of people there in I mean all year round basically, but also in the summer. So
yeah, and it's gelateria Caput Mundi, sort of gelateria for the whole world, or is that the?
Yeah, so the name Caput Mundi actually comes from, Rome was called the Roma Caput Mundi. Caput is let's say the capital of the world.
Yeah.
So then it's like a play with that. So
excellent. Yeah, no, it's fantastic. And as sort of if we slide slightly now, with my wife permitting, into a little bit more on payments, because what's interesting, I think, is that you created a kind of a cool payment solution for your gelateria. And I not only I was the seed investor of Crunchfish back in 2012, but in 2013 I was the seed investor in Pay, a company that, and you using their sort of it's sort of what we call that. It's mobile ordering and prepaid. So you're prepaying for your stuff, isn't it?
Well, not prepaid. I don't know what you mean.
Okay, I thought that you did pay already at order.
Yeah. Sorry, I misunderstood prepaid. Yeah, that's true. So like you order ahead before you actually come to the counter and get your ice cream. You have done the ordering and everything, and
payment.
In the payment. That's true. I mean, this was before we knew each other, and I actually did, before we started, because I'm a payment nerd, I did a big scanning of the market. So what would be the payment solution? and it's kind of funny now that we sit here and we ended up with Pay. But for me, it was like, I wanted to find a solution. As you know, in Asia, QR codes are very common, and you can sit on the train and you can just scan the QR code when you sit in your seat. You get the whole menu and you order, and they come out with what you order to where you sit. And we have QR codes in Sweden. It started to come, but basically most people associate it with Swish maybe, and Swish has their own QR codes. But together with Pay, I could do a solution whereby you actually, when you come to we basically have our own park. So we have put up QR codes everywhere. Instead of just you go to the line, you can just take your camera with your normal camera and just scan that, and you get up our menu. And from that, you just order whatever you want. And from the system, from Pay, we of course have put in, I'd say, our products like a normal checkout and everything. And you can choose if you pay with card or if you pay with Swish. So it's not only Swish, it's also card. And then when you have paid, you also get like a digital queue number. So it's red in the beginning, and then when it's your turn to come up, it's your number, and then it's green, and it's really, so that was really what I wanted to do. But it took some work to find the right partners to do this, and I think it will be even better next year. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm very. I've told Victor, he's the CEO of. I'm still at the board of Pay, and told him about. A payment nerd, using your word, have chosen sort of your solution after extensive research of different sort of alternatives.
Yeah.
Now that's good. And looking at the two payment options that are available. It's an online settlement, obviously, but you can either use Swish, that's sort of one scheme, real-time payment, and then you have cards, which is another type of scheme. Because I use the word scheme as much as I can because I've never used it in my whole life, and you taught me that during a training class to the whole team, and I think it's a good word to describe actually different flavors of sort of how you can settle. You can settle on real-time payments, account to account, or cards. That's sort of these are the two main schemes, isn't it? Sort of in the world, would you say?
Yeah. It is. And it's like just the same way as I think that you also have a background in telecom, and I think that it's interesting. It's in all systems where you have like I mean, a two-sided model. I mean, payments, it's a network industry, just like communication. And if I can only phone, I mean, someone on the same network as myself, then it's not very valuable. You need to reach all networks. And the same with payments. And the scheme is really the rules that ties together. I mean, you have the sending side and the receiving side of a payment. And so that you can actually agree on what are the business rules, but also what are the technical rails, where do we actually send the payments through to do interoperability. I think in telecoms, you have a lot of standards that are taking care of this kind of interoperability of switching between, I mean, sender and receiving networks. In payments, it's a little bit different, but it's sort of similar. I always saw it's a little bit like that. You have this switch in the middle, but you need this kind of a scheme, the rules between the participants. So you have, like, if you take Visa, you have I don't know how many thousands of banks that you have as a participants. Of course, you need to have very clear rules. What is, let's say, also, I mean, when it comes to how do we let's say, fund each other for payments, and how do we I mean, when there are, let's say, chargebacks, or when you have some kind of yeah, you need to pay back to the consumer. What are the rules for that? And but also down to the technical rails. Where do we send the payments and things like that? So I think that's yeah.
Oh yeah, it's all. Yeah, no, I agree. And it's a good word. And as I said, I understand what you're saying. As I'm also used to be called a telecom entrepreneur, but I'm sort of a payments entrepreneur now. So I've swapped sides, which is kind of fun. But two schemes, and sometimes I also call. There's a third scheme, which I think is an interesting scheme coming up. I don't know if you would agree, but CBDC. Central bank digital currency. It's not cards. It's not sort of really sort of instant. It's something else. Would you agree that that's a third sort of type of scheme?
Yeah, definitely. In the sense that also in the central bank issued currency, I mean, you need to have rules for how, I mean, the participants in that kind of network of how you're distributing the money, how it is exchanged, and yeah, how you process the payment. So I think that definitely that is, let's say, the newest scheme that we have seen coming up. It's not yet implemented, but it's, I mean, piloted like in Sweden, and so yeah.
Bahamas has started though. You read that? That's sort of the sand dollar. Yeah. They are first one out, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So no, it's good. So we have a card rail or the card scheme, and we have real-time payment or instant payment. It's probably the same word for the same thing. And then CBDC, central bank digital currency. And your own background, Patrick, because haven't you worked at some sort of, I don't know what, bankgirot in Swedish, which is sort of very central hub for a lot of the what we do in Sweden. Because I remember when we had the role of the state, the Swedish state in digital payments. I think it was Kristina Weishammar who said digital payment is one of those things that nobody knows how it works, but it sort of works all the time, but no one has a clue. But bankgirot has a very central role in the. Can you just explain, because I think you sat in the smack of the middle there for a while, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, so one part that let's say, I mean, there are two things that I've been doing. I mean, one part is working with the payment service providers like bankgirot, and bankgirot is what is called the automated clearinghouse in Sweden. You can call it this switch that we have in Sweden for the traditional payments, starting with kind of the basic account-to-account payments, the bank gyro as let's say a payment scheme, a payment system, a payment method we use when we pay our bills, but also I mean, I mean, lately it's of course instant payments. They're also processing, I mean, the payments through what is happening in Swish. So that was developed there. So bankgirot as a clearinghouse is really a hub for the payments that are being processed in Sweden. So yeah, I was working there for some years, and actually when we started the real-time payment project, so that was very exciting. It took a long time, a lot longer than we thought. I could leave, and then it was, let's say, materialized a few years later. But yeah, finally it was done in 2012.
Yeah, one thing which is interesting to me is you're saying sort of Bankieret has it for Swish, but I've also heard this company ACI, a US sort of company that have developed switches for many of the banks when they transfer money, card payments as well as real-time payments. How do they relate? Because I've heard that they have acquired a BIR from someone, banking in real time, which Swish is using today.
Well, there are, let's say, ACI Worldwide is one of the technology providers in the space of say, processing systems, payment systems that are being used by operators like Bankieret. So they actually are one of the, let's say, global leaders in this area. And I think that as in all industries, there has been a lot of mergers and consolidation. And I think the company that actually was developing the BIR, the Swedish real-time payment infrastructure, was another company called Funtech that was acquired by ACI Worldwide back in the day. But they are developed, let's say, the technical core of the real-time payment infrastructure in Sweden.
Okay. And it's now run by Bankieret.
Yeah. So it's just as a technology software provider. So okay. They did that, and they have nothing to do with even with Swish. But let's say the processing core of processing payment between a sending bank and receiving bank, the connectivity to the banks, the interfaces to the central bank for the final settlement, that kind of core infrastructure for payment processing, they provided as a software for. And then, of course, they were a very important part of the implementation project in Sweden. But that was some time back. But as a technology provider, and I know that after that, they have grown a lot, and I think today, I mean, they are like absolutely one of the leading technology providers in instant payments.
Yeah. No, I know they've acquired. They've done a similar play in India, where they bought a company that provide NPCI with the switch for UPI payments as well. So I think at least they took a 50% stake in that. So they are, and for many of the banks that needs to do these kind of transactions or have that core for their card payments, I think they are technology providers for them as well.
Yeah.
No.
But it's sometimes hard to know exactly what the companies are doing in instant payment. Everyone is claiming that they are a leader in instant payments, but there are so many parts. I mean, you can develop a small solution for the banks connecting to the instant payment infrastructure, and then you can say you are one of the leading. But I think with the ACI Worldwide, they are really in the core of this network.
Yeah. How would you characterize the card rails or the card schemes, because they are also moving towards instant as well, because card payments used to sort of take some time before the merchant actually got their money if you were paying with cards, but it's they are realizing that they probably need to speed up the settlement, even going to instant, as we say. What can you comment on sort of how is that happening right now? Where are the card companies going with this? Visa, MasterCard, Amex, whatever.
I think that it's interesting, but so in the beginning, if you think about 2012, when like Sweden launched the first instant payment system, and we were one of the early projects, then for a few years, you always had like a parallel system for card payments. So card payment is still dominant. When we think about retail payments, where I mean the payment method I use when I go to shop and things like that. But as in time, we saw that account-to-account payments, instant payments, adding on just a simple instructing interface like a Swish app or something, started to take a lot of transactions from the cards. Also as more and more in consumer to business. When you buy something online, I mean, if you think in Sweden. When we looked at introducing Swish, for instance, for some of the like Swedish railways, I think it took like 2 months in e-commerce when they introduced Swish. It was like 60 or 70% of all the transactions. So it quickly overtook the card transactions, and I think that we see that happening in a lot of places simply because it's very easy, it's more direct, it goes directly to my account and you move the money in real time. And I think that when that started to happening, I mean, you saw the card network start to look at, okay, this is basically just a rail for moving money from A to B. So, I mean, the card systems, they own, let's say, the brands, the customer-facing products. And for them, it was quite natural to look into, okay, so how do we go into this account-to-account instant payment rail? And I think that's what's led to when MasterCard actually acquired one of the early providers, which was Vocalink in the UK, which was one of the, actually, I think was the first instant payment infrastructure that was launched in 2008.
And that's the Bank Euro of UK, wasn't it?
Exactly. So then MasterCard acquired Vocalink and then developed it more to, I think, both kind of like a global solution as a software, but also as a solution they operate in different countries. So they now, I think, have like Singapore and some other countries that they now also, they won the instant payment project in the US, which is huge. So they will actually build, I mean, the instant payment infrastructure there. So I think what we see is a merging of this kind of more unifying of the rails. I think that it will not in the future be so important. I mean, if you look traditionally, the card networks had to develop their own highway, or so to say, between how do they process payments for card transactions. It needed to work in a specific way. But what we see right now is that this kind of, let's say, central superhighway, there are some very interesting things that is happening with that. And one other thing one thing is, of course, is becoming instant, and it's basically just the way we move money from A to B. And then it doesn't matter if it's card-based or if it's, I mean, the new infrastructure of instant payments, it's more modern. They usually talk about these ISO standards that you have in cards. It's called 8583. And if you compare that standard to the new payment messaging standard that you have in instant payment, which is 20022, the older card standard is much less, let's say, you cannot send as much information. It put a lot more restrictions on what you actually can send and what you can provide. And as we develop more and more sophisticated payment services, maybe we develop like add-ons like electronic receipts, or we connect an electronic invoice to the payment itself and things like that. It has really become that this new also technology and formats that we use for instant payment is becoming the norm for how payments work. So I think that is why we see also unification there. But what I was continuing talking about, I think is really interesting, is that the other part of this superhighway is that we see that the central bank themselves in different countries are moving ahead in their position and trying to take control of this super payment highway. So we have like, we used to have BIR, I mean the Swedish payment infrastructure. We used to have Vocalink in the UK. And we used to have on the European basis, we have, let's say, a European clearinghouse equivalent to Bank Euro called EBA Clearing, that they provided all the instant payment infrastructure for the banks, but still was a commercial solution that sits on top of the, let's say, the central bank infrastructure. What happened the last 2 or 3 years is that the central bank in Europe, the ECB, they have launched an instant payment infrastructure. And they are saying, I mean, you as a bank, you already have all your accounts here in the central infrastructure. Why don't we process this in real time instead? And then you don't need this intermediate layer that you have created on top. And that is the same thing that now is happening in Sweden when I mean, Riksbanken, they are saying that we will provide Riksinst, which is basically, I mean, they connect into the European network that ECB developed. And then you would, in theory, you wouldn't need BIR. You wouldn't need the kind of the infrastructure that sits on top between the banks. You can settle directly in Riksbanken. So this is kind of an interesting development that we see.
Yeah, no, we heard from Magnus Lagersson at Swish at this sort of webinar series that they will move to Riksinst in, I think he said 2022 from BIR. That's sort of decided already. So that's a migration that Swish will do. Onto that platform. Yeah, and looking at all these schemes, because one of the things that they have all in common is that they are online systems. All this what we are talking about is all happening in the cloud, isn't it? This sort of switching going on, and this is sort of what I think is interesting with where we have made a play into the market, that we are sort of building an offline settlement step, which is completely in a way separated, logically separated from the subsequent online settlement. We're not changing the online world at all. It's just that we are allowing the transaction to be sent up not at the time critical moment of payment, but later. And I'm actually, you're reasonably new to Crunchfish, and we haven't really sat down, as we, with the pandemics, we haven't really met even, Patrick, more than online. But how do you look upon our sort of innovation that we are actually bringing to the market here of an offline settlement step, which is logically separated from the subsequent and online settlement?
Mm-hmm. No, I think it's interesting. Of course, it's also challenging, let's say, the norm. I mean, in one way, you could say that we have moved from an offline, and not an offline world, but a batch world, and things that have been offline. If you think about old cards in the 70s, when you have like machines to yeah, exactly, into online, instant, everything should be. But that has also revealed, let's say, some problems that we see, and that are different problems when you don't have, let's say, connectivity, especially in countries like India and emerging markets where you don't have network connectivity. There are also areas where you don't have connectivity, like in the underground or in airplanes or whatever. I mean, in the Alps, or I mean, the areas where you are remote, and we talk about building. I mean, also the state talks about building inclusive payment systems and reaching all groups of society. So I think it is, let's say, I mean, the digital payment system of today doesn't solve, I mean, the payment distribution to everyone, and even though it has done a lot. So I think that what is interesting with your solution, or with Crunchfish solution, is that it's really ties into the existing payment schemes that we have. So it's not only for, let's say, CBDC, central bank digital currencies, or for, let's say Swish or instant payments, but it can be like an add-on for all payment systems, where you can add, I mean, functionality for performing payments, processing payments, when you don't, for different reason, have network connectivity, or to actually take, let's say, a load of the system in peak times and things like that. So, because I think it's, yeah, I think there are many facets to this offline solution, and I think it's interesting, and it brings up a lot of new possibilities. And I think one thing I'm thinking about, so why is this different? I mean, we had some failed, let's say, initiatives from like the cash card, and you have like stored value on a specific cash card in Sweden. You have dedicated terminals where you should load them, and then you should use them. But I think, and we also have like a Mondex card I think in the mid 90s and things like that. But I think the difference here is that we have gone from a world where everything was hardware based, and it was really difficult to get scale in that type of solution. To today, we have more like a software based solution where you can actually provide offline capability to existing, let's say, payment points on the payment side and on the merchant side. And I think that is where you really see a big possibility here for Crunchfish. So I think that is kind of, because I'm thinking about this myself, what we have seen throughout the years, why haven't this type of solution worked? And I think this is different now, when the whole kind of, let's say, payment interface from payer to beneficiary to recipient have been digitized. It creates different opportunities with the software-based solution that Crunchfish have.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think it's I think all the partners that we're adding into our ecosystem right now, we're really looking for the ones that, particularly, we're keen on the ones that do have software-based solution. It could be a PCI certified terminal, so you can pay to any app, and that can run on send up payments to the card rail, card schemes, but it could also be host card emulation, where on the payer side that you're getting in certified, so you can pay with cards using your app, and we can build those kind of bridges between our digital cash solution with software-based, say, card solutions like that, which I think could, because I think we are bringing in a level of robustness into those networks, which is interesting. My vision is even, I've said that a few times, but if you have enough money, why not just pay offline? Why you don't need online for in the moment of payments? I know we can look at it as this as a fringe case, that we only use it sort of really down, underground or in the Alps, or when you don't have it. But I can actually see almost turning things upside down. If you have enough money on your wallet, just use that. It works all the time. It's instant, and then you can always settle a millisecond later, but just see it as two steps. I think is the key idea here, in order to get that robustness that I think is sort of key to get into any sort of payment scheme, which is really not there to 100% level today, no matter how much you invest in infrastructure or servers or whatever.
No, that's true.
Yeah,
that's interesting. It's a little bit like going back to, I mean, where money started, where you start with. I mean, the important thing is trust, and that I mean, you often say that the money system started with debt. I mean, a system for creating debt, but we trust each other that I will pay later, and when you process it, it doesn't have to be in the moment of the transaction. It can be, I mean, later, but you have the trust between yourself. You have something.
Exactly. The trust is key. And that's why, so in a way, that's why this is such an opportunity for CBDC, where we have a central bank providing that trust in sort of by, in a digital form, in able to certify and guaranteeing that what you have received, you have basically you've received something where you have a claim on us, the Swedish state or the Swedish central bank with CBDC. So I think, but it's I like certainly the fact that we could have easily done this with say Swish here in Sweden, or as we are pursuing in other countries as well, because Swish has solved everything in Sweden when it comes to online payments. As you know, they can be used for e-commerce, as you said, or they can be used anywhere. But they've solved all the online issues, but they haven't solved cash. They haven't solved for cash, and that's what I think we can help Swish do. Which is, I think, is we don't need a central bank for that. We can just do it with Swish.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, and I'm really glad as you are, you're not full time with us, but you are with us on a long-term contract, and because your base is with another sort of very experienced payment player. Tieto Every, isn't it?
Yes. So that's where I'm a consultant from Tieto Every. Yes. So we have, of course, a big software side with payment solutions, from cards to payment products of different kind. But I belong to a consultancy unit.
But we're very happy, because and as I said, the fact that you had that on your CV, that I can make ice cream. I thought of it coming in this morning that 25 years ago I was in the telecom world, and I was hiring the head of in the US for our company, who's going to be the US head. And it was one guy. His CV, his name was Vince D'Onofrio. He had been Whoppy, the magic clown, on Children's Party. So I took him. Because I told Vince afterwards, he said, why did I get a job with, I'm sure you had others. I said, well, you are the only one who Whoppy the magic clown, I said.
It's a good thing to have on the CV, ice cream and clown career.
But, you need to stand out, I think. In a meadow with just white flowers, I tend to look at the yellow flower growing there. You see that one, but if you're just, if you just like everybody else, I think it's sort of hard to pick that one. But the chance to pick the yellow one is quite high. And I tend to like a little bit people who have gone out on a limb, because you really do this in the summers, the ice cream thing, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's like for 3 or 4 months in the summer that I do.
We can't count on you then. That's basically the
Well,
deal.
actually, I think I will make myself more available this next year, because now we have switched up a bit our organization. It's going so well, so we can have some other people.
Okay.
Maybe your wife will come and do.
Yeah, well, no, we have one of our daughters in Stockholm, so I think that could work. I think I know she wants to do the Patrick Centellini gelato online webinar for gelato making. She wants to do that one.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
No, it's great, Patrick. Thanks for sharing all this, and I think it is interesting. And next week, actually, we're gonna do schemes next week. As I've now learned the word schemes, payment schemes. I haven't really done those interviews yet, but I'm hoping to have, there's 3 interviews, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So I'm hoping to have one on instant payment or real-time payment, one talk on interview on CBDC, central bank currency, and one on the card schemes, to discuss that a little bit more in detail and try to get a mix from both our 2 main markets, India and Sweden as well. But I really appreciate you helping us to understand that these, well, today it's real-time payment and cards. CBDC is a sort of a 3rd one coming along. And then settlement could be online, as everybody else is doing. And then we are sort of adding an offline settlement to it. So I'm going to explore that a little bit with the different schemes and see how they view an offline component sort of next week. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it would be interesting to hear.
Yeah.
Different perspectives on it.
No, it's a fascinating world. I can understand that you. I think I like to join your nerd club in payments. It's kind of a fun world to be in, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But I think also, I mean, for us, if you have been in telecoms, I've always found it very fascinating to see kind of the similarities with how the industry is changing the same way. I mean, I usually, not so much now I talk about it, but I used to talk about a lot that we saw how the telecom industry went from very, let's say, the operators, they control the whole value chain. I mean, from the phone to the billing system, the networks, and that whatever apps or applications you have on your phone, to a very standardized backend where you can just build things on top with over-the-top players like the app providers and all of that, and the Googles, the Amazon, and all of that, WhatsApp. And we see the same thing happening in the payment industry, where, I mean, innovation in payments, it started on the front end side with PayPal, and you did something on top, like on the front end to have like a mobile wallet, but you still had the card network, or you had everything the same in the back end. Now when the back end is becoming standardized and open, I think India is the best example that we already see. When you open up that and you open for everyone to innovate on that platform, it really becomes interesting, and also hard for the incumbent players to stay, let's say, relevant at the customer touch points. And I think that is what we see is happening. Even though it's slow, it's making this, the payment industry right now is really interesting.
Yeah, I agree. No, I think I think this is a fantastic place to be at the moment, and we need people like you. And I had Ram earlier in the week here, which is sort of a great payment expert advising us and helping us in India. So it's we need these people around us in order to, because we are, as you know, we came from the telecom side or some other side, but we're learning quickly though. But we are new to it. But it's a fun world to dive into as crunch fishes.
Yeah, and I think you're adding a lot with this fresh perspective on things, and not being, let's say, or a conservative payment perspective maybe that you might have. So I think that you add a lot with innovation and a new perspective on solving problems that we see in the market. So that's great. I'm happy to be part of this.
Yeah, no, we're very happy to have you, Patrick. So and as this is the we do this interview on the 30th of December. We're going to air it sort of as a little bit more than 2 weeks, but Happy New Year, Patrick. And I'm sure I'll see you next year.
Yes, see you next year, and Happy New Year to you.
Okay, take care then. Cheers.
Bye-bye.